I'm grateful for the opportunity to return to our troops, their families, the civilians of the Department of Defense, because I know how committed they are and devoted they are to the defense of our country, the defense of our Constitution. And with our allies strengthened, with our country strengthened, I look forward to being the civilian leader so long as the Congress gives me the waiver and the Senate votes to consent. Thank you very much.
Now, earlier tonight, retired Marine Corps General James Mad Dog Mattis, he joined President-elect Donald Trump at his North Carolina thank you rally. Now, the President-elect, he's picked Mattis to serve as his Secretary of Defense. Here now, with reaction, the host of War Stories, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. You know Mad Dog Mattis, right?
I do indeed. I did not know him as Mad Dog. I knew him as Lieutenant Mattis. He was one of my lieutenants. I've known him for 43 years. The President-elect could not have picked a better person to lead the sprawling five-sided wastebasket as James Mattis. He's going to be a great Secretary of Defense, Sean.
All right, so there's a 1947 law. Originally, it mandated that the Secretary of Defense be out of uniform 10 years. It was since amended to 7 years, so the Republicans need to get a waiver. Now, people like Leon Panetta, and I got this congressman here, I guess his name is Seth Moulton of Massachusetts. They both have vouched for him. Two solid Democrats, but Nancy Pelosi's against it. Why would she be against that? Why is this law in place anyway at this point?
Well, the law was put in place because there was concern in the aftermath of World War II that there were too many military people bumping around Washington. And it was very clearly intended to make sure that there was, quote, civilian control over the military. Well, I point out to those who are critics that the civilian who is in control of the U.S. military is the commander-in-chief, who is a civilian. And he recognizes the need to have someone who is both a warrior and who knows warriors and who knows wars in order to fix the problems at the Pentagon that are, quite frankly, astronomical. You know, you could not have found a better man to do this because he knows what needs to be done. He's not afraid to take the axe to bad things. And he's famous for asking, what if? When someone gives him a briefing, and I've watched this guy since he was a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps, he'll ask, what if? In other words, something that the commander might not have thought of, or one of the staff aides hadn't thought of. And I watched him as a colonel. I watched him as a brigadier general, major general, lieutenant general. He was the commander of OIF-1. I watched him as he actually relieved a commander in the field during the fight all the way to Baghdad. This is a very tough guy.
Leon Panetta said the law was arbitrary, the 10 years down to 7 years, and he said that was crafted in a different era when generals had the singular role as war fighters, whereas today's generals have far more diverse roles. Here's what I want to get into as it relates to the Trump doctrine, because this is important. You fought in Vietnam. You have a couple of Purple Hearts fighting for your country. And we saw what happened. 58,000 people died in Vietnam, over 5,000 dead, Iraq and Afghanistan. And all these wars get politicized. Americans, we ask them to go fight, bleed, and die. They win Baghdad, Mosul, Ramadi, Fallujah, Tikrit. And then ISIS, a vacuum for them, is created. That's problematic for me, Colonel. We can't ask American men and women to do this and then pull their victory back like we have now done twice in the modern era.
Part of the problem is that the last several secretaries of defense have not been strategically minded. This man is a strategist. He is a diplomat. He is the kind of person who can use some very colorful language. We all know that. But he's a deep thinker. He's probably the best-read Secretary of Defense we've had, perhaps since George Marshall. And so what you're looking at is a president who knows he needs strategy, doesn't have one, and this is a person who can work very closely with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Joe Dunford, the current chairman, was his lead regimental combat team commander going all the way from Kuwait to Baghdad. These guys are going to work together to formulate a strategy that this president will endorse as the commander-in-chief, the Congress will support with funding, and he's going to cut the legs off from all the folks who, quite frankly, didn't know what they've been doing out there for the last 15 years.
You know, I guess the last thing, how do you see the Trump doctrine? Because he's saying he doesn't want to get entangled in these foreign conflicts anymore. I'm hoping we build the next generation of military equipment where maybe we don't have to send men and women on the ground banging on door after door after door in Baghdad looking for a bunch of terrorists willing to slaughter any American on a whim.
Sure. Or gotten blown up by a VBID, a
or an IED, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, all of that. And so what you're looking at is, I believe, a Secretary of Defense who's going to question, what if, every time something, I'll give you one right now. There's nobody in this town thinking of it. What if on inaugural day, just like happened in Ronald Reagan's era, something happens in the Middle East? Now, in Ronald Reagan's case, the Ayatollah Khomeini decided, I'm going to give up the hostages. What happens if Erdogan decides on inaugural day he's going to close Incirlik Air Base? I can assure you that there's one person, if no other, in this town that's already thought of what to do, and that's Jim Mattis. That's the kind of person we need in that kind of job.
Agreed. Well said. And I don't think he's going to have a problem. Enough Democrats now are on record saying he deserves the waiver. And the president-elect deserves his cabinet, the people he trusts. All right, Colonel North, safe home. Good to see you.